Amazing, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to kick things off. We'll be telling you a little bit about who we are as well for those who don't know us, but this is all going to be about winning the holidays, okay? And we want to really achieve our goals without missing the magic. There's a lot that goes on into the holiday season, and we want to make sure that for those of us who are really chasing our fitness goals, that doesn't set us back, but we still want to make sure that we're obviously enjoying this season as well with friends, family, and loved ones. So before we dive into the presentation, you might be like, all right, who's this guy talking to me? My name is Paris. I founded our coaching company, Truth Body Systems, many years ago. Courtney's actually my sister, one of our other coaches on the team. And then one of our previous clients is actually now a coach on our team as well, Coach Steve. So we've coached well over 200 people at this point. And even before that, I used to do a lot of in-person as well. We primarily specialize in fat loss and muscle growth. And we've been doing this collectively for over 15 years at this point. So this is kind of just who we are. And we have, of course, over 7 different educational, we'll say, items that we've certifications, degrees, etc., all surrounding the human body and how to get in awesome shape. So that's us in terms of our coaching team. Now we do focus on 3 key pillars, and that is science, sustainability, and success. We think, let's take the science, let's apply it in a way to the person that makes it sustainable for them. And ultimately, that's going to be what's going to make it successful. So you're going to hear a lot of things in this presentation today about making things sustainable. So now you know why. Science, sustainability, success. Those are our 3 key pillars. So what are we going to go over today? The first thing we're going to cover is the reality of holiday weight gain. So people are always worried about the holidays and you know, starting the new year at a much higher body fat percentage maybe than they would like to. Why is that? Is that a real thing? Is that just in our minds? We're going to explore that a little bit. The second is going to be, okay, how do we actually set ourselves up for a successful holiday season in whatever way we define success? The third is going to be executing a successful holiday season. So we're going to give you some really practical strategies that you can implement this year to make sure that you feel confident. And then we're going to open it up for a Q&A. I don't mind staying late. I don't mind staying extra if there's going to be value for you guys. So please don't be shy when we do get to the Q&A section. Please hold all your questions until then. But yeah, I really would love to hear some questions. We typically on these get some really awesome questions. So I want to make sure we cover everything that you guys want to know. Okay. Court, I'm going to hand it off to you. Section number 1.
Thank you so much. If you do have a question that comes to mind, you can pop it in the chat. I'll be checking the chat as well, and I'll bank it for a Q&A. So if you don't want to like forget it or something, you feel free to do that. And if we don't answer it right away, it's just because we're going to come back around to it. So Paris talked about, you know, is this kind of stress of the holiday season in our heads? How real is it? What's the experience? And so we want to dive into the reality of the holiday season because it is a joyful one, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have any challenges. So if we go on the next slide here, Paris, let's just take a quick peek. And we just like go into our imaginations for a second and we say, okay, 'twas the night before Christmas and we're lying in bed and we might be kept awake for reasons other than, you know, so let's just say it was not a case of not a creature was stirring because our mind was stirring. And there are stresses that keep us awake in the holiday season. And I'm curious to know, I'm going to go through a couple here, but if any of them actually sound familiar to any of you. So you might be wondering, you know, do I have to choose between my progress and celebrating? Oh, last year I put on 5 pounds. I'm worried about what's going to happen this year. I only have these cookies. I know for me, there's these cookies I only have once a year at the holidays. It's like, I only have them, but maybe I still feel a little bit guilty. Or even that feeling of self-consciousness at holiday events. Do any of these, like, feel free to drop like a yes in the chat if they sound familiar, or there's like a little emoji button at the bottom here. You can pop a thumbs up or any of that if any of these do sound familiar to you. Yeah, we got some thumbs up. Thanks, Mark. You found the emoji button. Amazing. So needless to say, yeah, there we go. We got some more thumbs up coming through. Okay, glad we picked some that felt familiar. So the holidays are challenging, right? We do want to address that. And there are a few reasons why, and maybe these ones sound familiar as well. So if we go through them, and they're just a collection that we picked, our routines change. Our routines change a lot over the holidays, where we are, what we're doing. Festive treats are everywhere. We want to indulge and relax. Like we go into the holidays being like, please let me relax. There are a lot of social pressures and social events that happen. And also there is this anticipation of the new year being like, do I have to do a new thing? I don't know. Do I need to set some goals? There is that little bit of a pressure associated with that too. So when we think about the stress of it, it's not that that stress isn't real or isn't deserved. And when we think specifically about how that stress relates to body composition goals, it is true that 51% of the weight that people gain over the year happens in just the 6 weeks of the holiday season. So that stat is kind of powerful, right? We think of the year as 52 weeks. So 6 weeks is, less than 10 or a bit more than 10% of the whole year. But we end up gaining 51% of weight gain from the whole year in that time period. So why is that, right? It's not like the holiday season means that there are different rules when it comes to body fat or weight gain. Go back one, Paris. There we go. And we're just going to talk a little bit about what the rules are. And what it means is like we still always have to be eating in a calorie surplus to gain weight, right? That is just a fact. The science doesn't change just because the calendar flips to December. So being in a calorie surplus means that we are consuming a higher number of calories than our body needs to go throughout the day, right? And so when that's the case, that doesn't change because it's December. However, what does change is the environment that we play in, which means that the level of competition gets harder, right? So it's like playing the game on hard mode or like trying to get to that level where you're trying to beat the boss, right? It's a lot more challenging to avoid eating in a calorie deficit, to adhere to a calorie deficit, and it's a lot easier to start to eat in a calorie surplus. What makes it easier, right? Well, let's break that down again. Food availability is everywhere. And we talk about food, it becomes the center point of what we do. So we can consume more calories because there's more food around us. The food choices around us also become more calorie dense, right? There are things that, we're not eager to have a salad on Christmas morning. We're probably having, pancakes. I know there's at least one person in this group that loves pancakes and, with maybe some whipped cream and such on it, right? So there's more calorie dense food choices. We also have an indulgence mindset, right? We tend to think about wanting to indulge as part of the holidays. So it starts up here. There's also this tendency to override our hunger and fullness cues. I don't know about you guys, but you might think, okay, I'm so full, but my favorite cookies are coming up, so I'm going to make space, right? Or sometimes it's not even intentional. It's just we're distracted because we're engaged in conversation, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, I'm full, right? So that also makes it easier to eat in a calorie surplus. And then, of course, we also tend to be a little bit more sedentary. Sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's that relaxation mode, but we might be a little bit less active than we typically are. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but even as Paris and I were building this presentation, I had this thought to myself. I'm like, I might not even care if I gain a few pounds, right? The memories matter so much, it's worth it, right? So we want to make sure that as much as we do want to acknowledge the reality that holiday weight gain is real, winning the holidays is not just about mitigating the holiday weight gain. It's actually about unlocking the skills for long-term success. So year after year, we feel confident navigating the holidays. Phase to phase or along our fitness journeys, we feel really confident in maintaining or improving our body composition. So that's what we're hoping to tackle today. And when we talk about winning the holidays, and the reason why we named this seminar or this masterclass winning the holidays is because there's a few things we want to say goodbye to as part of that victory. The first is the compounding health effects of annual weight gain over time. 1, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 5 pounds doesn't really make a big difference. But if we're thinking about 5 pounds over the course of 10 years, and there's also studies showing that people struggle to actually take the weight off in the new year, so it kind of adds up year after year, that can come with some health effects down the road. We also want to say goodbye to the feelings of like what we're calling avoidable guilt, right? Guilt should not have a place in the holiday season. It's meant to be a time of joy, and so we want to have strategies that allow us to say, I don't need to feel guilty about this. And we also want to say goodbye to this idea of starting the new year feeling defeated. When you navigate the holidays with confidence, you also start the new year feeling a little bit more empowered, and that's ultimately where we want to be, so that any goals you set for the new year and beyond feel very well within reach. Okay, so today's goal, we're hoping to give you clarity, structure, and simple strategies so that you can enjoy the holidays with confidence. And the meaning behind that is ultimately being able to stay aligned with your goals and fully savor the moments, meals, and traditions that matter most to you.
Sounds good to me. I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
Hoping it sounds good to everyone else too.
Yeah.
All right. So we first showed you guys the image on the left. It was the night before Christmas, and someone was awake with a few stressors. Our goal for today is to get closer to the image on the right, where we're sleeping peacefully, waiting for Santa or whoever your figure is, And we're able to celebrate with joy, feel strong, maintain momentum, know which boxes we need to check, so what's worth focusing on and what isn't, and then ultimately start Jan 1st feeling pretty good and well rested.
Awesome. Thanks, Court. So we did a pretty big kind of layup there, starting things off of like, okay, why do people tend to get in a little bit of trouble with maybe the weight creeping up during the holiday season, and then also kind of the emotions that are around the season. So let's dive into a little bit more of the strategies, because again, this is all about entering and tackling this season with confidence. So let's talk about that now. Step one, we're going to name it a little bit more festive for each of these steps here. So step one is setting your holiday North Star. Okay. And this is more in terms of planning. All right. So I'm a big fan of planning. Okay. My favorite line is the 5 Ps: proper planning prevents poor performance. You guys have probably heard that before many times. So that's what this section is all about. We want to set the intentions and objectives of the season, not just in terms of our fitness goals, but also in terms of what we actually want to get out of the holiday season from maybe an experience perspective or out of our relationships and things like that. And sometimes it's important when we're doing this to actually plan a phase that might align a little bit better. So for example, let's say I am in a fat loss phase. Maybe I will strategically plan for this to be a maintenance phase where I'm just aiming to hold my body weight steady during this period of time. That's the holidays. And I think a lot of times what we do with our clients is we will actually shoot for maintenance around a holiday season or a vacation or something, because then you're less likely to feel like you failed by not making perfect, quote unquote, progress. And you're more likely to be like, all right, my goal was maintenance and then I did maintain, so I was successful, right? And it's ultimately up to you to define what does success mean for you. Right. And for some people, if you've previously had a really tough time handling the holidays in the past and you're starting January really dissatisfied and looking in the mirror and being like, oh, what did I do? Maybe this year the goal is just to do a little bit better than what you did last year. That could be success. Right. So you get to choose what success is, but it's really important to think about these things before we actually start the season so that you're not already halfway through and being like, oh, I have no idea where I'm going and what was even the purpose behind the season in the first place. So this is a case study of one of our clients who did this exact thing. We had a kind of a medium-term fat loss phase, and we set strategic maintenance phases for Thanksgiving. We had different parties that we had, and also some trips, including one to Mexico, where we just purposefully aimed to maintain for that week or two, or whenever he was away, and it was part of the more medium-term fat loss phase. So just an example there. Step two, okay. Now that we've done step one, step two is to check Santa's radar. So, or what, again, as Courtney said, whatever your figure is that you would look up to in this situation. And this is more so about mapping things out and looking ahead. Our holiday schedule is going to look different for everybody. You might have a lot of events. You might not have that many events, but we do kind of know roughly what's going to happen when, okay, we usually go to Uncle Bill's house for Christmas dinner on this day. Okay, that's probably going to happen. And then, I usually go to my friend's house for this unwrapping party. Okay, that's probably going to happen. So you can kind of map these things out. And then when we really zoom out and we look at it from a bird's eye view, we can really see that, let's say you're having 3 meals a day, okay? And we have 3 different holiday festive meals that we're going to have throughout the month of December. 3 out of all those meals that you would have had is only like 3.2% of your total meals, okay? And if you tend to have 4 meals per day, that's like 2.4%, I believe the math is. So when we really zoom out, it's like, okay, if I was to go and write an exam and I got 97% on my exam, would I be happy? I'd be pretty happy. I'm a bit of perfectionist, but I would still be pretty happy. But for some reason, when we look at the holiday season, we tend to just globalize it as like, okay, December, it's a complete write-off. It's the holidays. I may as well just start in January. Like, for some reason, people have that mindset. But when we really look at it, it's like, okay, what percentage of our meals are actually kind of out of our control, for lack of a better term? Okay. So that was step 2. Step 3 is unwrapping your anchors, we're going to call them. All right. And what we mean by anchors are things that anchor you to your typical routines, because one of the reasons that Courtney was mentioning is where we have some issues in the holiday season is our routine is disrupted. So what we need to do is we need to find anchor points throughout our day or throughout our week or throughout the holiday season that give us that structure and anchor us into the routines that we know have continued to show us success in the past, or we know will continue to show us success in the future. So, for example, on the top, you can see some anchor points that, let's say this is a day that I'm going to have during the holiday season. The anchor points are the things that are going to keep me on track, feel like I'm in control, feel structured. make my day a bit more predictable. The things at the bottom are the things that are outside of my typical routine that are associated with the holiday season. So like sleeping in, commuting to visit friends or family, a holiday meal. And then the things at the top are things maybe I would do to, again, anchor me into my typical routines, like my morning walk. I maybe have a go-to protein smoothie in the morning. I'm going to prep my snacks ahead for the road so I know I'm on track, and then putting my phone away so I can have a good night's sleep at night, right? So it's just reminding yourself of, even when some of the control over our routine is taken away from us, we can still create as much predictability as possible. And something I'm big on is actually visualizing your days from start to finish. Don't say, oh, I just have this event and we'll just wing it. No, night before, take a step back, look at the next day and try to plan the sequence of events. And you're going to find there's a lot less stress, a lot less anxiety, and a lot more predictability when you do that.
Just curious, does anybody have any anchors that help them feel like they're in their routine? Anything that's part of your everyday that you're like, I can't go a day without this thing, this habit?
Ooh.
Mark, yeah. Mark's definitely got some.
I'm going to write mine in the chat.
Yeah. Protein oats. Oh, yes.
That's a good one.
I'm also into the protein oats.
Yeah.
I love variety in food, but that's the thing I have every day. Oh, blueberry, strawberries, and yogurt. Yeah, that's great, Wendy. Yeah, that's awesome. Then you know you're guaranteed to get some protein and fruit. Walking the dog, absolutely.
Yeah,
your dog depends on you, right? In this case, Matt depends on you.
Dogs are like the best accountability buddy for getting your steps in. It's
yes,
super
absolutely.
awesome. Like early hydrate workout. Perfect. Love it.
Fantastic.
Get after it.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I see, like, these are examples of anchor points, right, that we're putting on. So it's like keeping those will help us feel more stable during this holiday season. A great example of somebody who does this very well is our client here. He has kids, and it seems like every single week he has a completely different routine that's been thrown at him. So something he does is, just like Mark, he wakes up early and he has his workout done, some steps done, and like his first meal is like a high protein meal that's pretty consistent. And that kind of anchors his day. So no matter what chaos happens with young kids, he knows he checks those boxes. So that's just a good example there. I'm going to pass the torch back to Courtney.
Thanks, Paris. So hopefully by now we've started to think about how we can approach the holiday season, right? Because it's not just about, like, we're talking about those 3% of meals, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, right? But when we have those approaches of kind of defining what success looks like for us, understanding what our anchors are, and just keeping that perspective that these meals are small moments over the course of the whole month, we can feel prepared then that when we get to those meals, we're like, all right, we're ready to tackle them. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to talk about an analogy, which is imagining your nutrition like a budget. And before we actually explain what we mean by this, I'd love to hear, if you don't mind dropping in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and say a quick yes or no. Is anybody currently tracking their food? So using like a food tracking app or any other sort of food monitoring strategies that you're currently using? Wendy, yes, thumbs up to tracking. Anyone else? Yes, Mark, you're using Chronometer. Love Chronometer.
Electros, yeah.
Yes.
Linda, nice.
Yes. Linda, yes, awesome. Awesome. Just learning, yep, that's okay. That's totally okay. It's a skill. It takes time. It definitely takes time, for sure. Okay. All right. So actually, go back one, Paris, before we get into it. Yeah. So if you are tracking or not tracking, either way, the idea of a budget can really help you think about your daily nutrition. Because when we think about nutrition, in this case, we are going to be talking a little bit about calories specifically. And the reason for that is because when we talked about some of the challenges with the holiday season, it is kind of the abundance of calories that do contribute to holiday weight gain, right? And so what we're here to talk about today is not anything about calorie restriction in terms of go as low as possible. It's more about managing our calories as if we had a daily budget, right? So when we think about having a budget, we get to choose, what do we spend on? And sometimes there are things we want to spend on that may be luxury items, right? Or that we have discretionary spending. And then there are things we have to spend on, like paying the bill. I don't love paying my rent, but I have to do it anyways. But sometimes I might splurge a little bit and buy myself like a new t-shirt. Yeah, that's splurging for me. For some people, maybe it's a handbag or something, but whatever it is, you know, we all have different definitions. So for the purpose of this section, we're going to start to think about planning our nutrition around holiday meals as if we were navigating a budget. Okay.
Love it.
So the goal with budgeting is really to maintain a certain level of awareness around your intake throughout the day, right? Because Paris talked about like these, we're talking 3% of meals if you have 3 holiday meals, right? But the whole day, then now all of a sudden we got 10% of our days if we have those 3 meals on 3 different days. So what we want to think about is, let's be aware of the total day and decide if you want to spend on something because you want it or because you need it, right? So if you are tracking, you can actually quantify your spend allocation for that main event, right? So let's say you have a daily calorie budget, you can say, okay, this is how much I want to quote unquote spend on that meal, right? And then that can help you plan out what you're going to be spending it on the rest of the day. We're going to talk more specifically about those strategies in a second. But if you're also not tracking your food, you can still do that kind of mental exchange, right? You can say, okay, what are my priorities? If I were to give weight to those priorities, you know, how much of my, you know, theoretical budget do I want to spend over on this dinner? Where would I give versus take to make space in my budget for that holiday meal? And maybe that's holiday meal because you know it's going to be more calorie dense because it has dessert and you don't typically eat dessert and you want to make space for that. So thinking about your priorities and seeing it like, okay, I'm budgeting. Where am I spending the most of my money today?
Cool.
So when we start to break that budget analogy into tactical steps, we can think about, there's going to be 5 strategies here that we're going to talk about. And we're going to start with if you are tracking your food intake. And if you're not, this could also be a good way to like get started and try and see, right? And start to actually learn a little bit more about the quantitative side of your nutrition. But one thing you can do if you're using an app is you can actually input your day of eating in advance. So what you could do is say, okay, this is what I plan to eat tomorrow. And when you map it all out, you'll naturally see, okay, how much of my budget am I spending on what I've planned? How much of my budget have I like still got, right? After I've accounted for my plans. So doing it in advance means that you're not looking back going like, oh, I really didn't even think about that. You've thought about it before it even starts, before the occasion even starts. The second thing is you can either estimate the main meal or leave an open budget, right? So let's say you're going to Christmas dinner and you know, okay, it's going to be turkey. It's going to be, Paris said we're going to Uncle Bill. So let's say Uncle Bill made amazing mashed potatoes, right? And I know that there's going to be a dessert I want. Well, if you're tracking your food and you're inputting the day in advance, you can then estimate, okay, these are the foods I'm going to have. We might not know the exact portion sizes, but we can at least get closer to. The other thing we could do is we could map out the rest of the day and leave an open budget and say, okay, I'm going to save, 800 calories for that meal, for example. The other thing that is important as well is like we're talking about calories as kind of the main things in our budget, but there are also other targets that are really important for us to think about, which is protein and fiber, right? So let's talk about those as like almost like sublines or line items in our budget, right? We want to say, okay, if I've planned out my day, how much fiber am I getting? How much protein am I getting? And actually start to make sure that we're checking in on those things because we can almost consider those like, almost like our bills we got to pay. Like those are the things that keep the lights on and that keep the water running, right? So those are important things that we don't want to forget about when we're thinking about our budget. Now, if you are not tracking your food, and even if you are, this still applies. One thing about budgeting is we do not want to go into the meal starving, meaning we do not want to, go out to a Michelin star restaurant and spend $1,000 and then not be able to eat the rest of the month because we can't afford it, right? Or we're only eating like baked beans in a can. So we want to make sure we're at least spreading the love of the budget, right? And so that way it can do 2 things. It can make sure that you have more control going into that meal. Because I don't know about you guys, but like if I'm starving, any sort of guidelines I set for myself are out the window. I'm just going to eat whatever's in front of me. So it's really important that when we are thinking about that budget, we're not like going on a complete spree for that one meal and then like neglecting to pay our bills. We want to spread the love a little bit as well. So anything you can do to manage your hunger, if you want help on that or want some tips, let us know. We've got some resources going into that meal can be helpful. So you're not going in starving. And the second thing is really when you think about budgeting, taking care of what are we spending on earlier in the day. And there's 3 key things that become really important. I'm going to do them in reverse order here. One is protein. We've talked about that earlier. Protein is always going to be important. So prioritize protein earlier in the day. The second is nutrients, right? Because usually I love all foods, but I don't get to a holiday meal and get super excited about the Brussels sprouts. I usually get really excited about the other things. So making sure that we're taking care of nutrients and getting our fruits and veggies in the rest of the day as well. And then volume. So volume, for some of you might be a newer term. Some of you guys might have heard us say this before. But when we're thinking about volume, what we mean is foods that have a large portion size or can be physically filling, like they fill up a lot of space on a plate for a low amount of calories. And this is typically things like fruits and veg, but also sometimes things like potatoes, right? Or other foods that can be really filling. Greek yogurt, Wendy mentioned earlier, yogurt's great for her, right? That's a filling food. So if we eat those things earlier in the day, then we know we've taken care of different nutrition priorities. We've spent our budget on the things that matter. We're not going to go into that meal starving. And we also have saved, quote unquote, a few calories in our budget to spend on that bigger meal. Okay, this is not photoshopped like the hats were. This is a real photo of me eating a cookie. So these are the holiday cookies that my partner and I make every year. It's his mother's recipe, and they're like Toblerone shortbread. They're absolutely amazing. We made actually some last weekend, and I still find ways to fit them into the budget, and so can everybody here, right? Like the goal is that we know that they are part of the celebrations. So making space for them in your budget is important, but also key to making sure that you feel confident around these foods as well, and you feel in control around these foods. So here's a couple quick tips. The first is prioritize. We mentioned up front that one of the challenges of this season is that festive treats are everywhere. It's up to you to decide which ones are most satisfying to you, which are most important, and when you want to have them. Because I mean, I used to work in an office where we were absolutely spoiled with the treats that were brought in to us on a daily basis. But it was, you know, I would say I'm not going to care as much about those as I'm going to care about the cookies I make at home with my partner that have, you know, tradition and meaning to me. So prioritizing which treats are most important to you. Don't eat the dessert you don't love. Pick the one you do love, right? And so when are you going to have them, which occasions, and which ones are priority to you? The second one is giving yourself guidelines around these foods. So it could be, you know, I'm going to make sure that I have dessert, you know, 1 cookie instead of 5, or 2 cookies, or like I'm going to have dessert only if I'm less than a 9 out of 10 fullness, making sure you're not, you know, already too full and then layering dessert on top, because that's also going to improve the enjoyment. So giving yourself some guidelines. If you are tracking your food, also pre-log that, account for it in your budget ahead of time. Say to yourself, okay, I know I'm going to want this cookie, so I'm going to put a placeholder in my tracker for that, and then it becomes part of your plan. And what's a better way to eliminate any sense of guilt or stress than being like, I planned for it. It's on the plan. We're good to go. And then lastly is if you are, again, tracking your food, most of the apps, and especially the one we recommend, Mark shouted it out earlier, Chronometer, you can input your own custom recipes. That's exactly what I do with these cookies. I build the recipe in there. I know it makes 24. I even measure them out so they're all even in terms of weight. And then there we go. Every time I have one, I can log it because my recipe is waiting for me already in the app. I know exactly how it fits into my day.
Perfect. I love that, Courtney. It's really important to do that, because then you'll see Courtney will be able to enjoy those cookies that she really loved without any guilt, because she's made it kind of like part of the plan. Obviously, she's still going to check her boxes for fruits and veggies and food quality, but then she's like, you know what, I saved for this cookie there, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that whatsoever. This is an example of a client who does a really good job with, we'll say, non-routine meal planning. Pretty much half of her week, she has to estimate a lot of meals just based on personal situations and context. So she can be very accurate for the first half of the week tracking. And then the second half of the week, she has to rely on her nutritional knowledge and skills to do a lot of estimating and navigating around meals where she doesn't have complete control of. So just a great example. You can still see progress just by putting these kind of strategies into play. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something that the concept might only be a little bit more applicable to people who have a bit more experience with tracking, and definitely are those who are more consistent with their tracking and have, you know, consistency and a good track record with tracking. But the idea and the concept can still be understood by everybody. So this is an idea of calorie borrowing. Okay, so I just want to give a hypothetical example. Let's pretend that this is me, even though it's not me. But let's just say my daily nutrition target for calories specifically is 2,000 calories. Okay, so within a 7-day week, my total calories for the week are 14,000. Okay, but let's say, again, we're going back to Uncle Bill's place, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I want to eat a little bit more that day. You know, he's going to make those cookies. Courtney's bringing those cookies that she makes. I need an extra little bit of calories, but I don't want to have to save all my calories for the end of the day because I'm going to be hungry. But I also don't want to ruin any of my progress. Well, something that you can do is you can do a little bit of, again, calorie borrowing. So for the first 3 days, for example, I could take away 150 calories. And that would give me an extra 450 calories within my week that I'm then going to put towards that Friday dinner. All right. So if you look at the total calories for the week as a whole, because we can kind of look at we'll call it net energy balance, just means like how much energy we're consuming via calories during the week. It still stayed the same. I just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to have that on Friday, and voila, nothing else changed. And you know what? I had a great time, and then back to my usual intake after that. What I really want to highlight is we don't want to do this to any sort of extreme. So try not to borrow more than 250 of your daily calories as a general rule of thumb. The more experienced you are, the more you can, use this calorie borrowing. I've done this to more extremes, but I don't recommend, going in major fluctuations day to day. Our body loves consistency. And also, this is not yo-yoing. We're not playing the game of trying to overly restrict to make room for this big night of binging, or we're not binging and then trying to overly restrict to make up for it and with all the fueled by feelings of guilt. That's not this game. It's a very subtle, okay, I'm going to take a little bit from here, give a little bit to here, and netting out consistently over the course of the week. Okay. This is a strategy that I think, again, as you get more experience with tracking, can be very liberating in a way, but does take a little bit more skill. This is an example of a client that we've recently implemented this with, essentially has more social events and things on the weekend and almost requires a little bit more flexibility for those things, or wants more flexibility. So what we've done is we've actually gone a little bit more assertive with the calories in the first half of the week to make a little bit more space. Our calorie average has netted out where we wanted it to, and we've still seen some awesome progress. So just another example there. Okay, now something I do want to highlight is it's not just about what you eat, it's also about how you eat. Okay, we need to hit this home, because this is still a myth that's floating around in the fitness industry way too much. There's no single food that causes weight gain. Okay, there's no good foods, there's no bad foods. There's foods with more or less calories. There's foods that are more or less filling. There's foods that have more or less nutrients. But there's no one food like, oh, I'm going to eat this chocolate and that's what makes me gain fat. And I've seen this I'm sorry, excuse my language, but stupid trend floating around with people demonizing fruits. I'm like, you got to be joking me. We've made our way around every possible food group, and we landed on fruits. I'm like, nobody ever got overweight by eating too many like zucchinis, fruits and veggies. That's the rumor. Fruits and veggies are not bad for you whatsoever. Please don't ever avoid that. Nobody ever gained too much weight by eating apples and zucchinis. Okay. Now, so that I want to hammer that home. The second, I like to use a term with our clients, like eat like an adult. Okay, so build a nice, well-rounded plate with good amount of protein, good amount of fruits or veggies, and like nice balanced plate. Don't save all your calories for the end of the day and just only eat mac and cheese and dessert. Like eat like a normal adult. If you were to visualize how an adult would eat.
Mark, I saw your eyes. You were tempted, the mac and cheese and dessert. I saw that.
Yeah, I love mac and cheese too, but I'm gonna have my protein before.
But there's no bad food, so the mac and cheese can go on the plate. Just build the whole plate like an adult would.
Exactly. And we got to account for it with this strategy, as Courtney said. And something to keep in mind, and I find I'm a fast eater. I don't know why, but it's out of habit. I need to slow it down a little bit. But what I do find is satiety takes a little bit to catch up. So a lot of us, if we're eating really fast or we're distracted eating, the fullness kind of hits us a little bit later. And then if we just keep eating, it like double hits us. We're full, but then we're like, holy crap, I am like really full. So what I recommend is, and what Courtney and I both recommend is eating up until you're around 80% full, wait for 20 minutes, have some water. If you are still hungry, you can continue your meal. But a lot of times what you're going to find is you're just going to be stuffed. And you're like, you know what? I didn't even need those extra servings of whatever else I was going to grab. Okay. And key thing here, let's say, it's a day after. We need to know or think about what do we do next, right? Because your response of what you do next is really what shapes the lasting outcomes in our fitness journey. And key thing that we need to think about is like, okay, if we did overeat, if we're waking up in the morning, we're like, oh man, I overdid it. We don't want to play the overcompensation game where we're trying to, starve ourselves the next day, overly restrict, do hours of cardio. We just want to get back to listening to our appetite cues, right? Maybe you might end up a little bit lower that day in calories just because you're not as hungry, not because we're forcefully, reducing calories. Want to integrate some regular movement. If you usually go on your walks, do your workouts, just keep that up. And then revisit those anchor points that will draw you back into your typical routines, the ones that we talked about on one of the earlier slides. Very important to just get right back in it, right back to your usual routines. But before you do that, take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, what went well? What did I handle about that event? And then what would I do differently next time? And you don't just do this when you feel like you, quote unquote, slipped up or whatever. Also do this when you feel like you did a good job. And say, why did I do a good job? And how can I emulate that in the future so I continue doing a really good job? And by a good job, I mean not sacrificing on your goals, but also having a really good damn time, like we're supposed to in the holidays. Because that's the holy grail of what we want in our fitness journey. That's why we preach sustainability, because we're all about being in kick-ass shape and also living an awesome life. All right. Now, we can't be talking about the holidays without this variable here. Some of you drink, some of you don't. I'm going to talk about it because I do think it's important and something that people don't think about. Let's talk a little bit about macronutrients first, okay? We have proteins, we have fats, and we have carbs. These are the things that make up calories within our diet. Protein and carbs have 4 calories per gram. Fats are a little bit more calorie dense, 9 calories per gram. What people don't think about is that alcohol in itself has 7 calories per gram. So when we have a drink, let's say I went in and I had a beer right now. I have the calories that are coming from the alcohol in the beer, but I'm also having the calories that are coming from the carbohydrates in the beer. So we really need to think about this is a key contributor to a lot of people's excess calorie consumption during the holiday season, especially with things like, this goes way up with things like even the Baileys, which is like the ultimate concoction of like sugar, alcohol, and cream, right? Which is really easy to go way overboard on.
And hot chocolate, but if you don't know the calorie density and you find out, it can be kind of surprising. Yeah.
Just measure it out once, just so you know. So we do know the percentage of alcohol consumption increases significantly. Like, for example, anywhere from 27 to 200% increase, and obviously peak days around New Year's and Christmas. People have drinking traditions, right? Maybe again, Uncle Bill's bringing out some of that Baileys or something like that. And we also have certain emotional triggers. Maybe, we're tired of certain family members, so we want to have a few more drinks to put up with them. Or maybe it's a celebratory thing. We do this every Christmas. We're doing shots of tequila. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to tell you the facts and help you with some strategies. All right. And if you do choose to have drinks, here are a few tips. If you want something that's really in depth, I created a presentation going over exactly everything you need to know about alcohol. But here are some quick fire tips. First things first is to read the labels to build awareness and educate yourself on what's actually in them. For example, a lot of people don't know that alcohol has calories in itself, and then you also have carbohydrates, for example, in a beer. So, if you're using an app or something, like scan it in and check it out, or search online, like, okay, what does a Corona have in it? Or what does a tequila shot have in it? And that way you can build awareness of, okay, what is actually in the drink that I'm drinking? The second is to select your beverage preferences based on A, what you like, and B, if you're trying to keep calories a little bit more controlled, then educating yourself on that too. Like, for example, if I have a pint of Guinness versus a tequila soda, there's a massive difference in calories, and those add up. If you're having 4 of them, it could be a massive difference in the amount of calories you ingest. So just kind of really choosing wisely there, and then giving yourself some guidelines. For example, just like Courtney said with the budgeting analogy of like, okay, I'm going to input my cookie in ahead of time. Let's say I want to have a couple Coronas on Christmas. I'm going to input those in the morning so that I've already banked the budget, quote unquote, for them.
You're going to input those in the morning into your app, not into your body. Just saying.
Yeah. Don't be drinking in the morning. It's not a great idea. But yeah, I'm going to input them into my food tracking app in the morning. So I've already allotted the budget for them. So now I can just fill in the gaps up until that for the rest of the day, knowing that I've already accounted for them. And I've set the number that I want when I'm going to have them as well. Okay. So the other thing to think about is choosing your indulgences and trade-offs. So, if let's say you are going to have the cake, maybe, you don't have the drinks, or vice versa, right? Like, things can add up really fast when we're choosing to have all the indulgences. It's like, choose the ones that you actually value and you actually want, right? Like, if you don't like cake, like, don't have the cake. If you don't like drinking, spend quote unquote the calories elsewhere. And of course, as I said before, if you're tracking, track it, right? You can just focus on for that day, just including it within your calorie budget. Okay, so perhaps like one of the most important things here is recognizing that our mindset really matters. And something I really highlight for a lot of our clients is we are here for the people, conversations, and experiences. We're not just here for the food and drink. And yes, sometimes the experience incorporates foods and drinks, yes, but we can eat and drink whenever we want technically, but we're actually there for the people, the conversations, and the experiences. And I think the more present you are in the moment and the more you are enjoying those three things, the less you have to rely on food and drink to fill in the gaps for how you're feeling. Okay.
Remember that the entire purpose of this is to build skills, right? It is not to nitpick about one individual meal or one day where we had higher calories. The goal from the beginning has been like, how do we build the skills so that we can navigate the holidays feeling really confident in our decision making, feeling aware of why we're making the decisions and food choices we're making, and also feeling really, really confident in our own abilities to, tackle any fitness goals you have, if that's weight maintenance over the holidays, or if that's, setting up a fat loss phase, or even if it's muscle building, we still need the same attention to detail, right? So regardless what your goals are, even if those goals don't even have anything to do with body composition, and they're just about making you feel more aware of the nutrition choices you're making and building that confidence in your own skin, all of it comes down to building the skills. And so our hope is that today, by going through the strategies, we can help with that skill building, because any skill takes practice, right? Nobody became a professional athlete without practice. For us to really start to master and own our nutrition decisions, it does take practice. And so we're not here to say everything has to be perfect like this holiday season, but by at least trying some of these strategies, these holiday seasons, you can put in the practice to build these skills that will serve you for the very long term. This is a client who did an absolutely phenomenal job of focusing on skill building. So this individual, we worked together for about like the first 5 months. We were just focusing on, hey, we're going to develop the skills to navigate day-to-day routines, focusing on different meals, whether that be meals out with family, meals at home in different contexts, different times of day, different days of the week, and really focus on navigating and building those skills. What ended up happening was when this client actually went on a cruise, which is a very special event, and not even just one meal, like a cruise is multiple days, multiple meals, right? They had the skills to be able to navigate their experience on the cruise. And then when they came back from their cruise, they also settled back into those skills and kept using them. And so they actually hit a major weight loss milestone after the cruise, because they had all these skills that they established, worked on, saw a lot of success with, carried them with them to the cruise, came back from the cruise, and still had those skills to hang on to. So when we do zoom out, we can see how skill building can really lead to that long-term success. And once you have the skills, you don't lose them. So that's a good part.
Yeah. And just another example, I'll use myself as an example. I always like to say, we like to practice what we preach to the highest degree. I think that's just, if you want to be a genuine person and you're a coach, like you got to do that. So I recently ran a fat loss phase, top to bottom of somewhere around 10 pounds in 8-ish weeks. I think I started tracking my weight a little bit before this, but anyways, during that time I had a trip to Vancouver, which I visited Courtney. We also had a client competing in a fitness competition. So had a few days in Vancouver, had 2 birthday dinners, one of which was mine, and also a meal with my partner's family. Now, it didn't impact anything. You can even see there's the line is almost linear, which doesn't usually happen with weekly weigh-ins. These are my weekly weigh-in averages, but it just goes to show you, like, when you have I just saw Mark's comment. Yeah. That's too funny. When you have the skills built, you will build confidence in your ability to handle anything. And everybody's got an excuse. Oh, it's my birthday, I'm not going to start. Oh, I'm going to trip. Oh, I'm not going to start. It's like, there's always going to be something. But what we're advocating for is, like, it doesn't need to be perfect. But with the skills that we're talking about in this presentation, you can just still do the damn thing and make awesome progress without sacrificing that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And like we said, we like to walk the talk. So I got to put my own hat in the ring, right? So this was my experience last year from the holidays. So see in the timeline, we go from like start of November into February. Start of November, I was kind of finishing up what we call a mini cut, so a very short-term fat loss phase. And I had tons of trouble last November. Like, I was all over the place. So didn't want to be trying to manage fat loss. I just set a goal of weight maintenance through the holidays and then reset in the new year, right? So you can see here actually where we've marked pre-holidays and post-holidays. My weigh-in was pretty much the exact, very consistent and stayed the same. I didn't even take my weigh-in data for those couple weeks during the holidays, but you can see afterwards kind of stayed fairly flat, right? And that was my goal. I just wanted to enjoy the holidays, be present, my weight was not something I was particularly concerned about. And then I did do a little bit of a fat loss phase to start the new year. And you can see how that then trended downwards. But by really allowing that space for maintenance, I think it enhanced my ability to just enjoy the holidays, just focus on relaxing, have the cookie tradition be a thing, enjoy the foods I want to enjoy time with my partner. And to be honest, I don't remember most of the foods I ate last holidays, but I remember the time that I had with my partner, and I can now say that I was successful afterwards.
I love it.
Okay.
So as we come close to wrapping up here, Courtney, you want to tell us kind of just a recap on?
Yeah, so I mean, we've thrown a lot out here today of different strategies, ways of thinking that we use to navigate the holidays. But when we go back to our core goal here, which is let's win the holidays, right? Let's win the holidays. Let's have the clarity, structure, skills that we need to be successful, managing our fitness goals, our fitness journeys, whatever they may entail for us, and the joy of the season, right? We have approached it through the lens of how do we set ourselves up for success, and then how do we execute with success. And I'm not going to read all of these because we just told you all about them, but this is really a one-page summary of everything we've talked about today. Everything from, making sure we acknowledge what are our actual goals and objectives and how are we defining success, right through to how we respond the day after. So start to finish, this is just kind of like if you need to screenshot or whatever it is, this is your one-page takeaway of like things to keep in mind as your blueprint to set up success for the holidays. And of course, all of this is underpinned by the mindset that you bring, the skills you bring, and it becomes and it also reinforces your ability to uphold a strong mindset and build those skills.
Okay, well said.
Okay, so we're going to go back to our lovely sleeping woman because 'twas the night before Christmas. And we just want to check in and say, how are we feeling? Because we're hopeful that you're feeling a little bit less like the woman on the left, or, envision it's a man if you're male, or a little bit more like the one on the right. So a little bit more peace of mind and 'twas the night before Christmas.
Kind of looks like our mom, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it does actually. That was not intentional.
Okay. All right, guys, before we hop into the Q&A, because I want to make sure we deliver as much freaking value as possible in this presentation, because that's what we're about here. I'm just going to give a very, very quick run through of the promotion that we're offering. So since we appreciate everybody attending today, we're actually extending our Black Friday promo for everybody here. So what we're essentially doing for 6 and 12-month coaching packages is we're giving a bonus month. So instead of 6, it's 7. Instead of 12, it's 13 months of coaching. Why we are doing this is because we want to help you to integrate these strategies that we've talked about during the month of December, so that going into the new year, you're confident, you feel like you handle things well, and you already have momentum instead of, what everybody else is doing and waking up being like, shoot, what have I done? I need to, undo this. We don't like that. We don't want you to be in that situation. So that is our offer for you today. We are also going to drop our booking links. If you do want to book a quick 15-minute chat to talk a little bit more about your goals, see if we're the right people to help you out, Courtney's going to drop that in the chat there. And again, this is something special we're offering because we appreciate you coming out. And here's a just plug of some social proof for some of our clients here with just some wins that they've had, real people just like you who live real lives. Some of them have kids, some of them don't have kids, some of them are single, some of them are married, some of them, travel, some of them don't, some of them work a lot, some of them don't, like a mixture of, all sorts of lifestyles, both genders, everything, like you name it, we've seen it. So nothing, crazy in terms of anything I want to say here, just other than real people that get real results.
Okay. We've arrived at the Q&A. We'll take a quick pause. Thank you so much, Electra, for joining us. I'm glad you found it informative and helpful. We hope everyone did. We know there's a lot in here. We're always available for questions now, and also, like, if you have follow-up questions, you can always find us on Instagram or reach out to us any way, shape, or form. So we'll just open it up for any questions you have on today's content so far.
Feel free to type in the chat. We'll give you a little bit there, or if anybody. Okay.
Yeah, Mark,
let me see if I can unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, I unmuted myself.
Perfect.
So thank you very much for this presentation. I think there's a lot of actionable items in there that I can see myself implementing this holiday season. There's one thing that I'm glad you mentioned emotional triggers, because I was waiting for that part where it's like, you're coming from the everything's festive angle, and I'm like, hang on, I go to some of these get-togethers, like there's a jerk cousin that I don't want to see, and he starts talking to me. And one thing, it's maybe just more of a comment, is don't be near the appetizer table when you get roped into one of those conversations with the person you don't want to be near,
Yeah.
because it's just like, oh, they're talking still. Oh, let me grab another block of cheese.
Yeah.
There's that boredom or coping eating and snacking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, this is really good. Thank you for this.
I'm not sure. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it, Mark. I'm not sure if anybody here has heard of the feelings wheel. If you haven't, you can Google it, or I can pull it up and show and drop it in the chat. But I find the feelings wheel can be kind of helpful too, to like check in with yourself on like, what am I actually feeling right now? Like maybe it's anger towards that person, or maybe it is boredom. But the feelings wheel can help like you identify like, how am I feeling in this moment? And maybe then you can learn more about your own emotional triggers and how that also relates to some of your food decisions.
Yeah, and key is not eating. Yeah. You know, you're not alone in the struggle with overeating during this time frame. But you know, it's, again, as I said at the beginning, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to try to be better than what you were last year, right? If last year you were reviewing your decision and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm not really happy with the decisions I made. This year you don't need to go from like a B- to an A+ all at once. Maybe, okay, this year, I'm going to try to give myself a rating of I don't know, what B+ or something like that, something that's realistic, right? So I think giving ourselves a sliding scale versus thinking about our fitness journey as pass or fail, I think is a really important mindset.
And even just like identifying, like when you think about what overeating feels like, what does that feel like to you? Is it a feeling of fullness? Is it indulging in things you don't feel like you don't actually want to be eating? Like defining what overeating means to you, and then saying, okay, if that's my definition, which of these strategies best applies to help me manage that or avoid that?
Love it, guys. Don't be shy. I always say I don't bite. It's more of a nibble. So don't be shy.
You are always very, very welcome. It's yeah, that's what we're here for, right? To keep you planning out your plates and focusing on these non-routine meals and just embracing them with confidence. I'm glad the conversations are helping. Is there anything in today's content that has surprised anyone? Is there anything here that was like surprising? And that could be in a, I didn't think about that kind of way, or it could be like, what does that mean kind of way?
I was personally surprised by the stat on weight gain, and then the stat on like the compounding effects of weight gain. Like when we look at that, like I didn't realize that a lot of the weight gain that people have over the decades, it can actually be attributed to that small period of time and then they never kind of dieted it off. Yeah, the calorie boring. Yeah.
Calorie boring, yes, definitely.
Yeah, the calorie boring for me too. I'm like, hang on, I've been working with this guy almost 4 years. He's never told me I can borrow calories.
Time and place. No, it's just good because Mark, he doesn't want you to get bored. So he's like trying to find all these new things, Yeah. Cindy, you were going to say something.
Oh, sorry. I was just reading Guy Champagne. His message was about planning out the plate.
Yeah.
And I think that really, I really like that idea because it really does provide a lot of the key points that you talked about, because it kind of also removes the trigger because you're focusing on like what's going in there and actually holding on to something that you're feeling and, knowing what's going on there, it kind of keeps it real as well. It's like a real entity rather than just, you have it in your hand and it pops and you have no idea how much you ate.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because like if you build the plate first, you have full awareness of like what you're going to eat versus it's the little snacking, as Mark said, like the appetizers here, a couple bites of the cheese there, a little grab of this here, and before you know, you don't really know what you're eating. You've been eating, right? So that's a great point. Yeah.
Visualization. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So I know it says Guy Champagne. It's really Tracy, but I went to a holiday party just recently last week, and before I went, I talked to Courtney, and thankfully she told me how to build my plate because it was a potluck, and it was perfect. Like I was like, hey, 3/4 of it protein and vegetables, and 1/4 a carb. I don't know, like I didn't feel like I was missing out on stuff and everything. It was really good.
Amazing. Great work.
Tracy, I'm so
Fantastic.
thrilled that that worked out for you, and like just gives you momentum, right? Like these events don't have to become road bumps or speed bumps. They don't need to slow you down. We just keep going, right? And I think that's the fun part of this journey. And I was going to say my thoughts on focusing on what goes on the plate also does help you kind of keep an abundance mindset. And this is something I'm really fond of. It's like, think about what am I adding to my plate? Because we get caught up in like, what am I not going to eat? Or I'm not going to touch that, or I'm going to restrict that. But when we say, okay, well, something's got to go on my plate. What am I picking?
Mm-hmm.
Then it helps us focus on making productive choices and also like filling something up rather than taking it away. And that just mentally and psychologically, I think, feels better.
Yeah, for sure. And you also find over time, you might use multiple of these strategies at once. Like for example, in my fat loss phase, I used calorie boring. I used the estimating and the budgeting that we talked about. I used like pretty much everything that we talked about in here, I used. But I also do want to highlight that even if this all seems like overwhelming right now, it didn't just happen overnight that I built these skills. And to be honest, this was one of the first fat loss phases where I really was able to balance these things very well without like any really measurable impact. But that's only because this is not my first rodeo. So if you're feeling like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that now or whatever, it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect right away, but also just like Courtney said, these are skills you build over time. Like the first time you sit down to play the piano, if you're learning piano, you're not going to be playing Mozart. I'm sorry, unless you're like some like, you know, very gifted, like that just came out of the womb ready to play. It's going to take some time. The first time you're going to press a few buttons, you're going to be like, well, that didn't sound right. And then maybe the second time you sit down, you get a couple notes. And then the third time you're getting a few more notes. And eventually you're working up to playing that beautiful Mozart. But there's a process to get there. Same thing with the skills in our fitness journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing, guys. Don't be shy. Any other questions? Yeah, Mark, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is going to resonate with anyone, but occasionally there's the guilt trip that you get laid on with the, why aren't you eating any of my stuffing?
Yes.
Like, do you communicate to people ahead of time saying, listen, I'm in a weight loss phase. I'm just trying to maintain my weight. And you know, because then people get offended that your stuffing is fattening. I don't know.
Yeah, I have one thought. Court, do you mind if I go first again?
Go for it.
So Mark, it's a very common situation, and you know, no problem, Tracy. Thanks
you so
for
much,
coming.
Tracy. I appreciate your time this evening.
This is something that happens a lot, and I feel like the way I phrase it, one of my go-to lines is, you know what, I'm already so full. I don't even think I can have any more. Can I take some home for later? Because I'm really excited to try it. I just can't have another bite. That's the best one because you're not offending them. You're like, oh, he wants it. He's just full. So, you know, he's going to take it home, right? So saying that is like, oh, can I please take some of that home? I've been looking forward to it, but I'm just so full. Holy smokes. Or just having like a small portion, even if you take it on your plate, just like take a little bit and, you know, it won't be as much. Those are kind of my two go-to lines, so that you don't offend anybody. I feel like as soon as you bring up like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, like people get a little bit like insecure in weird ways. And I feel like it just enters weird conversation. Everybody just kind of looking at each other like, you know, a bit odd. And they won't understand. You're not going to go and explain to them like, you know, calorie budgeting and the things that we talked about in the tracking. Oh, you see my app. Like, you don't want to be doing that, right? So those are strategies I use. Courtney, I don't know if you have any
Yeah, I think what you said there just about like the second you bring up anything, like I intentionally never use like, well, not never, but I try to avoid the word diet because everybody has a different stigma attached to it. But the second you say that you're working towards a goal that is fat loss, weight loss oriented, thanks, Debbie, people tend to think, well, you don't need to lose weight or one meal is not going to make the difference. And you get that kind of resistance. You look great the way you are, those sorts of things, right? So I think making it more about like kind of out of respect for like not, sometimes you don't have to talk about it in relation to your goals and just saying like, you know what, in this moment, I'm really good, or like what Paris said, and just kind of disconnecting from sort of the physique outcomes of it or the body composition outcomes makes people a little bit more sympathetic. But actually, Mark, I'm really glad you brought that up because I'm going to just kind of plug that. Paris and I, on our upcoming podcast episode, which will come out next Monday, we talk exactly about that. Like the idea of, we're calling it food shaming because it kind of is that. It's other people kind of judging you for your decisions around food. And it just flares up so much at the holidays. And it is different when we're talking about maybe the people who are like closest to you in your life, that are like, you know, your immediate family, your loved ones, your closest supporters, versus maybe that, you know, third cousin you see once a year at holidays, right? The people who are closer to you, you might have a different conversation about, hey, this is why my food choices are important to me, versus that other person, maybe you know, I don't want to say you don't brush them off, but you respectfully just make it about something else, right? And so, yeah, we're excited that, that we have that podcast episode coming out.
Yeah, because like obviously for people in the close circle, if you're chasing your goals, like you want to help them understand exactly what you're doing and say, hey, these are the ways my behaviors might change over the next little while, and here's why I'm doing it and what I'm working towards. But you know, it's some cousin that you see once a year, you're not going to go into the depths of your why and how it's such a transformational journey for you. Like they might not really care. So you can use just kind of like blanket kind of statements just to kind of get past. But ultimately, this might sound a bit harsh, but like we can't let the opinions of others hold us back from chasing our goals, because that person probably is not going to remember 2 days later, like how much of their stuffing you had, or if you tried their cake. Like they might be offended for 1 second, but then like they'll move on, they'll be okay. But for you, if this goal means so much to you, it's like, why would you sacrifice that your progress towards your goal just for the sake of potentially pleasing somebody who like their opinion doesn't really have any significance for you in that way? I don't know if that sounds like insensitive, but it's like you make your decisions for you, and you can be polite. Doesn't mean you have to be rude, but like you don't owe them anything. Like if you want the stuffing, like try some, right? But if you don't, like you don't have to.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
You don't have to justify your decisions to anybody else.
Really good stuff. Any other questions, comments, contributions? We're good.
No, we're going to wrap up for today.
Feels okay, guys.
I know we went a couple minutes over, so we've already had a couple folks sign off. But for those of you here, thank you. Like, thank you sincerely for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your attention, your engagement, all of that. If you do want to learn a little bit more about some of the things we like to talk about and how we integrate these sorts of strategies into like fitness goals and fitness lifestyle, you can find us on Instagram. As I just mentioned, we also have our Truth Talks podcast, which is available on most platforms. And then I did drop the links into the chat. If you do want to take a call with either one of us, we're happy to chat about your goals on a one-on-one basis as well.
Yeah, guys, that podcast literally is all the resources and knowledge that I wish I could have had like a decade ago. We put in there, right? Like I wish somebody, when I started my fitness journey, said, "Here you go, young Padawan. Take this and go learn." Like I really wish, like that's how much value and effort we're pouring into that. And Courtney puts a lot of work on the back end, making sure that it's well edited and everything. So if there's one thing to check out, I'd definitely go there. Hey guys, with that,
Mark,
we're gonna sign off. Thank you everybody once again. Happy holidays. Have a great night
holidays.
And keep crushing your goals.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.